Hello. So I decided to resume my live videos today. The weather is taking a break at the moment. We had lots of cold weather falling from the sky this past weekend, and we're supposed to have some more cold weather this weekend. Less rain, apparently, and more like solid stuff is what I've heard so far. So that shall be interesting. I've been paying attention and being quiet and taking a little bit of a rest because that was what was needed, apparently. Resting as much as possible, not arguing with people, and just in general not being available. Everything's gone pretty well though. Today is now Wednesday. I have a doctor's appointment, another one tomorrow. That'll be my last one for many months. I am sitting in my car and it's really comfortable. The back seats like recline and stuff, and leather seating and stuff, and everything's very pretty. But yeah, so I'm having a good day at the moment. I am, still working on the autism stuff because, I've got a bunch of situations that are really weird. I mean, there's things that are already weird about stuff like that, like, or in my life, like, I had, somebody, like, gaslight me and telling me that, I have people telling me that I'm crazy, like, that I'm, like, should be locked up at a mental institute and stuff like that. That there's something very wrong with me, that I was really hurt as a small child. Like, people, like, that were close to me and stuff, like my grandmother, she thinks that that's how life works, even though I've never had a complaint about anything. The only thing that has come up year after year after year is that she, isn't making any sense. Like, 1 + 1 = 2. Like, and because she isn't making any sense to me, there's something very wrong with me. And I'm like, that's not how life works. I don't have a mental illness because you aren't making any sense. Like, because you tell me, because you're making up lies. Like, and that's basically what that is. Like, she has an opinion about something that somebody told her, somebody cheated on somebody, and, that has nothing to do with me. And because I wouldn't hate this person after out of what she said, for 40 years, that there's something wrong with me. And I'm like, there is nobody, I've never met anybody that has those, like, stipulations on their life. Like, I've never heard of anybody else, like, being not well in the mind because they won't believe that, things that they know aren't true, like, aren't true kind of thing. Like, Like that doesn't work. Like, I went to public school. I know how to do math. Like, I know logic and rhetoric and stuff. I went to public schools for 12 years. Like, if you had, like, hid me in a basement, for the first 20 years of my life, yeah, I might not know, like, be able to, like, logic stuff out. But, like, that is, not how life works and stuff. So, like, I don't get a mental illness because you're a liar. Like, if they're like, if we go in somewhere and she's tried to do that, like, she has totally tried to take me to, and I'm like, let's go, because, like, this has absolutely nothing to do with me. And, like, you lying has nothing to do with me, and so, like, I go there and I sit there, and I'm like, there isn't any, nobody talks, nobody asks you anything, like, why are you here or anything, like, if you want to be there, like, they'll take you and stuff. So, it's like, I don't have a problem with it, I cared about her, and, I don't have to live with it, like, doing that to somebody, and a child at that, so, that's not my problem. Um, you know, um, Everybody else like, everybody I have worked with, like, um, the years, like, was definitely there with me, but I'd, like, you know, um, come home and stuff and be like, yeah, she'd be like, what'd you do today? And I'd be like, I've been talking to my therapist, going over there, and, like, and she's like, did you tell them what they did to you? And I'm like, what, who did to me? And she's like, about your mom leaving you when you were a kid, about your stepmom, stealing your stuff, And she's like, make sure you tell them everything that everybody has done to you. And I'm like, I'm not there worried about, like, why would I do that? Um, I know, like, there is no question, like, I know why that happened. Like, I don't have any kind of, like, I was there. Like, you weren't there, so you don't know what's happening. You get what I mean? Like, she wasn't there, she doesn't know what's happening. I'm, she knows why. And it's because she's the adult and she wouldn't do anything about it. So, you know, because the house was in somebody else's name, my dad's name, she didn't have, that's not her kid anymore. Normally when someone dies, like, their family wants to, like, have something to do with, like, the property and stuff, and everything that he had when he left over. If somebody, like, doesn't have a will, like, they'd never seen him before. They had never, met my dad. Like, they didn't have anything to do with his property or his kids or his wife or anything. Like, they're that batshit crazy. Um, and so, not my problem, like, none of that makes any sense, and I have, like, definitely talked to my therapist over the years about how, like, that doesn't really make any sense, so, and, like, that's the reason why I was in therapy, is because there was a bunch of situations that I didn't know what was going on, like, and, like, my family is inept when it comes to stuff like that, so, we had to redo everything and figure it out, and start at the bottom and stuff, because, like, they didn't know. So, I spent 20 years, learning about mental illnesses, and how they work together, and, intellectual disability, like, a low IQ is a mental illness. Like, my sister, has a mental illness. She is mentally and physically disabled. We wouldn't change the way the world is in order to fit her. Like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, that's not what happens with disorders. Like, they're disorders because, there are deviations from the norm, and there is a large group of people in the world right now, specifically in first world countries, that believe that, medical conditions are, because they're all encompassing, that they're, not mental illnesses. And I'm like, it's a neural pathway kind of thing. Like, it's not something, like, sometimes you can see it on the outside because that's how neurology works, but like, my sister has intellectual disability and a communication disability with it, which is mental and physical disability. And she had seizures when I was a little kid, and up until she was 9 years old, 15 or so, she was 9 when I was born, and so she stopped having them. Like, she hasn't had one since my parents split up that I know of. I mean, she may have had one when I was a kid still right there, but I don't think so. Definitely not after the age of 20, and she's almost 50, that's 30, and so that would be, past the age of my 10th year. So she had one a couple years ago. So now she's on bipolar medication. And like I said, she is completely mentally and physically disabled. So my sister is bipolar, because she was, that's not something, like, that's something you're kind of born with, from childhood and stuff. So that is how it works. To put it bluntly and straight, is like, people can look at some words and they don't know what they are. Like, they don't know what that, they can't do math. Like, they can't look at one, like, word problems and stuff. They can't look at one situation and then, one paragraph and look at the other paragraph and put those two things together and see how that works. Like, they, are totally disregarding the reality of, like, medical conditions and stuff. And I think that is really sad. That's not my problem. Like I said, I spent 40 years dealing with a woman who, like, tells me and, everybody around them, like, just blurts out random things, and that is not anybody's, like, nobody's problem. It's not my problem. It's not, the person at the bank counter's problem, and that has been a thing over the years, is like, when you're out somewhere and someone's like, deciding to be, like, racist and putting their hands all on people, like, around them and stuff, is like, only thing you can really do is, is like, well, just like it gets bad at anywhere else, like, call the police if it bothers you, kind of thing. Like, it's not my responsibility. Like, she's mean to me too, so she does it to me as well. Like, that's the situation in dealing with people who, are in denial and not attached to reality. You know, it's not just me. Like, there's, you know, um, a person or two that's like, you know, who stands up for him and stuff, and then it's like everybody else that's ever, you know, had to deal with them and stuff, and it's, you know, is like, so I guess everybody's crazy if she's right, kind of thing. And so that's not good. You know, you don't, you know, people like feeding into somebody's dementia is what that is, and it's like, that's fucked up. Like, it's creepy. You don't do that. But that's also not something that anybody can do anything about. Like, she has it set up to where, like, she does not mind if somebody comes over and, you know, who's mentally ill, you know, and is sits there and tells her, she's right, she's right, she's right, when she knows, like, she knows she's not right and stuff. So it's like, um, but, like, you know, all those conversations I definitely have had in my life, with her. You know, it's a situation where it's like, you know, you definitely have been, like, out of your mind and bipolar, you know, my entire life, so it's not too surprising that you have dementia and you can't remember and, you know, stuck with those lies and stuff, you know, and that's kind of your reality now. Like, you know, she will never get to see, my, um, you know, wins and stuff like that. You know, she did go from, like, and that is not at all anything that I have to be worried about. Like, if you don't know math, like, if you can't logic stuff out, and I've given you the answers, and you can't see, like, do the math to be like, oh, okay, you know, from your own personal experiences and stuff, then, like, you know, it's different with a kid. You know, you can sit and, like, tell, you know, show a kid, and because they want to know and stuff, but, like, it is definitely nothing I can do for another adult who, you know, is not in touch with the world around them and stuff. You know, it's one thing to, like, not know and not have any kind of interest in a subject. Like, there's plenty of subjects that I don't understand, and I have never had any connection to them or anything like that. You know, but when you've literally not only lived an experience, like, you know, having brown hair, you know, or having this face, like, I've had my face, you know, for 40 years. So, you know, I have been alive for 40 years and stuff. So, I then spent 20 years going over all kinds of stuff in order to, because I also, you know, like, because I wanted to know. It wasn't because, like, I had an idea and then it was like, well, let's make this fit. Like, I had no idea. Because not only, you know, was I not a doctor, you know, and was a teenager when I started that, but also, you know, like, did not have a degree, had barely ever worked before, grew up in dance, but also, I'm the one with a disorder. So, like, I just think, you know, so, yeah, I mean, like, dogs bark and stuff, so it is not too surprising to me that I had to. Alrighty, so it took a break, but it's still going. So, as I was saying, it's not too surprising to me that dogs bark, that people, you know, that are crazy are crazy. what it is a sad, you know, and also, you know, you get those same conversations where it's like, someone's like, you're still upset that people are mean and crazy, and I'm like, that doesn't go away. Like, you know, and then they'll get mad because, like, someone raises their voice or something to them, and it's like, I thought you just said something to me about being upset that, or surprised that people are that way. It's like, actually, that is you being upset. Actually, I'm not upset, I just said it. So, and no, me saying that is not a jab at you or anything. You were the person who offered that information, like, into a conversation. So it's like that, you know, also has nothing to do with me, because I've had people do that. They're like, well, I'm upset because you mentioned, you know, and I'm like, it's, I've been through all kinds of mental exercises. So I can really do the math, on a lot of stuff. But, yeah, so, you know, I woke up today, and, like, every day for the past couple weeks in this month of January, you know, I get on Facebook, and, I was looking at people commenting about autism and stuff, and it's just like, it's so amazing, like, how weird people are. Excuse me, how none of it makes sense. You know, I definitely did get to the end of it, you know, and didn't really have anybody that was like, yay, you figured it out, you know, that kind of thing. You know, I've had one or two people that are like that, thankfully, because, I mean, I did, like, I've definitely spent my whole entire life, like, trying to work that out, you know. It's like, there's something in there, like, there's something in there permanent, like, something's going on. I know how medicine and mental health works enough, like, even before I studied it, it was like, you know, the reason why I'm studying it, it's like, because something doesn't make sense, you know. But I wasn't completely aware of, like, what a developmental disorder was. You know, like, I couldn't see the full circle. So, you know, finally was like, oh, you know, there's a piece of something that is like, you know, going on and stuff. And so people literally think, like, they can't figure out the difference between, because, like, ID and ADHD, like, you know, ID is below 70 and ADHD is above 70, and they can't work out because autism falls in between those two things. They can't work out what that means, and you know, what a disorder of not having a communication disorder or intellectual disorder is. It's really interesting. And then, like, the little parts that they're saying, you know, are just aspects of, like, a learning disorder, because there's a whole rest of the list, you know, and so it just, like, keeps going back and forth and back and forth, and nobody actually ever flips it and figures it out and stuff. And it's because people are mentally ill. Like, you can't, like, if you can't reason, you know, and you are mentally ill and stuff, like, you're not gonna be able to do the math. So it's like, you know, just like when I first went into a therapist when I was 16, 17, and my mom, for some reason, told somebody this, and I'm like, wrong kid. Like, you know, my brother had no offense to him, but, like, he knows this. He had a difficult childhood. Like, he spent his entire school and stuff, like, you know, working with, like he was not okay. Like, he had a lot of problems and stuff. I had none. Like, there was never, like, I had some mental breakdowns in school, but, like, some literal mental breakdowns, you know. But Chip also, like, Chip, you know, would hit people and fight and stuff. There was none of that in me. Like, mine had nothing to do with anybody else. Mine was just me. And you know, I didn't have behavioral problems. I didn't talk too much in class. You know, it was the opposite. You know, I didn't want to talk, and you know, and that's outside of like my own experiences, like my own memory of my disorders. You know, like going into school the first day, and to kindergarten, like, you know, and I remember my dad with me, and he was talking to my kindergarten teacher, and I'm standing there, and the kindergarten teacher asked me something, and I had a tick. And I remember it. Like, it was the very first thing that happened to me when I went to school in kindergarten. And my entire life, like, I do not know what that was or what that is and stuff like that. And my dad turned around and glared at me. And I was, you know, I had no fucking idea what was, like, why I would do that, like, what that meant, like, or anything, like, what come out of my mouth, like, you know, and nobody ever tried to figure it out, you know. All my dad would tell me is like, you're so smart, you know, and like, why don't you do the work, you know, while he's like not doing anything. Like, he was completely out of touch with, but my dad had bipolar. Like, he was he didn't, you know, follow through with his responsibilities and stuff. Like, he didn't work. He didn't have any friends. I mean, he was a very social, very loving person. Like, it really, 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 really hurt me that he didn't have any friends, but, like, it was not good, you know, and so I just spent my time doing what I was supposed to do, like, what was on my list of things to do that was given me until I could, you know, get to a stable point so I could figure out what the fuck was going on. And then, you know, 20 years of that, and working with groups of people and stuff, and to get to the other side, for people to be like, you know, there's no proof of, like, you know, like, it's notoriously, you know, hard to find people who are actually, you know, and throwing that in my face and stuff, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, you're requesting that, like, even though I've known you, you know, for this entire time, and that's what I've been doing when I wasn't in the room with you, kind of thing, like, you know, what it is people are just, nasty, and not in a cool, funky, like, music way, you know, they, people like to, rile other people that they don't like. It makes them feel inferior, like something's wrong with them and stuff, you know. And that, like I have so blatantly stated a couple times, is nothing I can do about, because, you know, I can sit here and explain to somebody why that's not the case, but if you constantly are proving to someone that, like, you know, if someone's like, you're not a piece of shit, and then you, like, constantly keep doing piece of shit things, like, yeah, I'm gonna walk away. Like, it's like, you're not getting that, I'm trying to tell you, you can make a choice to quit being a piece of shit and care about something, and, you know, you can't make other people care about stuff, so the only thing you can do, like, in order to, fix that kind of thing is to walk away from them, you know, because, in raising kids and stuff like that, you know, like, when a kid's crying, you don't want to break down and cry with them, you know, like, like, they look at you for support and stuff like that, so that's how that works. With people and adults and stuff, you can kind of do the same thing, you know, like, that's the thing. So, you know, you have to take care of yourself. And it does kind of get to a point where people are like, oh, if this person's still hanging around me and stuff, you know, then they don't care about themselves, kind of thing. So, like, what do? You know, you have to, like, walk away and not worry about it. Whew, it was, oh, it's warm. Came outside to sit in the chilly weather so I could kind of wake up a little bit. But it is really, you know, like, amazing to me that people are so dumb. But the thing is like, it's not necessarily a dumb thing. Is people are fucking crazy and they're angry. Like, I mean, I'm angry, but, like, with their whole being. Like, they don't, like, stuff doesn't make sense, you know, and they know it. Like, they know it doesn't make sense because you can hear it in their tone and the way they ask questions and write stuff, you know, on the internet. Like, so, but at the same time, you know, it's like not really a whole lot I can do about that. You know, it's, for one, it's not my place. For two, you know, even like if I turned out to, like, you know, just have like bipolar disorder or something, you know, like that. That's what I was gonna say a little while ago. Is I remember one, and I've mentioned this a couple times, when I first went in to a psych office when I was 17, 16, and I was like, I think I'm depressed, and the lady was like, you're bipolar, and I'm like, well, much, you know, like, yeah, I didn't really say much, but, you know, so I looked at the definition, I'm like, I have never, and I didn't even tell her anything about my symptoms or anything like that. Like, I had never had any manic symptoms, like, whatsoever. But I had my mom tell somebody that one time too, but my mom was always, like, very, like, kind of go along with what other people are saying too, because it doesn't really matter. But I was like, you know, what it is that children don't have depression problems, unless they have bipolar. Like, that's not how depression presents. And so for me to go in and be like, I think I have depression, was actually me having a neurodevelopmental disorder that, it's actually a sign of epilepsy and narcolepsy, and that wasn't diagnosed. And, you know, I have genetic diabetes and, you know, hypogeusia or whatever, like an altered sense of taste and stuff like that. That is the reason why I had, you know, depression as a teenager and stuff, and was having, is because there was issues that I was having physically, like literally medically, and I didn't have the words to explain them. That is completely a thing. Now the thing is that it is abuse. What I went through, like, for my family, is well insured as my family was, to not know that. The fact that my dad, you know, I lived with my dad and had custody with him, he was not doing his job. So my therapist is not going to say that. Like, the maybe, you know, there's, like, but I didn't know. Like, I had no idea about my medicals or anything, because nobody told me, or you know, I had figured that if there was something wrong with me or something like that, you know, that I would have known about it, you know, because that's how family and parents work and stuff like that. Nope. You know, I had this huge group of people around me, all pointing at my mother, who is taking care, who was, for one, being abused, and for two, you know, has severe ADHD. Not a little bit, not people talking, like, you know, borderline nonverbal ADHD. Like, my mom has really severe ADHD, actually. So, like, and you know, I have an older sister who's in a wheelchair. So, you know, and I've got these people fighting in court trying to have custody over me, and they don't even know who I am. And I live in the home with them. Like, it wasn't a matter of me being, you know, them trying to get me, like, to come live, you know, that I live somewhere else and they don't know who I am kind of thing. Like, they literally were arguing over a piece of paper with my name on it, not me. Like, so, that's all real. Like, it's even documented on VHS and stuff. So, you know, anybody come at me and tell me that, like, this stuff didn't happen, it's like, you know, we can literally sit down in front of my TV and watch this shit replay. Like, you can, if you want to see me as a child have, like, really serious Tourette's, like, the most severe that there is, like, it's on VHS. It is me sitting, you know, there's one video of me sitting on Santa's lap at 5 years old, and I am freaking the fuck out, and not a single goddamn person said, you know, cared or noticed or anything. Like, sitting in, you know, in the middle of a space where there's hundreds of people around me, and I do not have a Tourette's diagnosis. So, that's pretty fucked up. Just on, you know, that level. You know, but I know that, you know, I know my parents, I know my, you know, and this is not my mom because my mom was doing something else, but I know my dad, I know my grandparents and stuff, you know, and I knew that if there's some reason why they hadn't diagnosed me for something that was so fucking obvious, that there had to be another reason. Like, if there is a reason why I don't have a Tourette's diagnosis, you know, there had to have been something else. And, you know, they're like, oh, somebody did something to you. And I'm like, that's not, like, that is literally not how humans work. Like, that's not how animals work. That's not how the nervous system works and stuff. Like, so, ooh, it is cold. I gotta roll these windows up. You know, it's pretty sad. Like, why would you do that and say that other than, you know, the situation was just mad for some reason. Oh yeah, because they took me on as a responsibility, you know, that kind of thing. Like, they can't make somebody be who they wanted them to be. Like, they couldn't, you know, I guess they expected my mother to, you know, at 9-10 years old, after my dad married her, to put her in her home or something. You know, my sister at 15 years old. Like, that's pretty nuts. Can you imagine, like, insinuating that somebody do something like that? Marrying them, and then being like, why don't you put your kid in a home that you went back and got out of a home? Like, from the first time that your parents had you put her in a home and stuff. And it's like, there's some of the things that I have been told, and I'm just like, there are no words to the horrible, like, just idiotic, like, super, 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 super ignorant, dumb shit that I've heard come out of people's mouths. And for no reason, you know, like, they sit there and be like, well, this, and it's like, that's not reality. Like, that's not a reason. Like, you have to have, like, you know, some kind of reason for, like, being that unempathetic. And they're like, nope, no reason. I just want to be. Like, you know, and what it is suicidalness. Like, that is to be suicidal. So, it's like, you know, I've had to deal with that constantly, with somebody, like, you know, threatening to, like, what if I didn't exist, you know, like, what if I hurt you, you know, like, I'm serious, like, my dad and my grandmother and my grandpa were all three like that, constantly. So, you know, it is not any skin off my back. People being mean or ignorant. You know, I also don't have ADHD, so it never would have been my problem. But the thing, you know, like, that's not how stuff like that works. But it's still sad. This is long. This is a long video, but I guess I'm gonna end it. But I didn't really have much organized stuff to say today. But I am a little sad about, like, people, like, being really gross people. So there is not really anything I can do about that, but, you know, find other people in the world to associate with. So you know, and I just pray that I spent enough time around my brother and I was able to, you know, educate him enough to where he can stay in touch with reality around him and work on logic and stuff like that. Know, you know, the difference between reality and what's not reality and stuff. So, and I hope my cousins, my younger cousins, you know, are smart and stuff too. You know, it really matters a lot to me. I want them to be able to take care of themselves, and I don't want them to be used and stuff. So, but yeah, it is the middle of the week, isn't it? Wednesday? Yes, it is Wednesday, January 28th, and this is a little longer than I thought I would originally make, but everything is going well today. Hope everybody has a good rest of their week and has a good weekend this weekend. And I wonder if it's gonna snow. I don't know, it's supposed to, but we will see. So prepare for that. All right, I hope everybody has a good rest of their day.